Alright children, today we're going to talk about what my average week was like as a club promoter back when I was far much more younger, charming and charismatic. So I'm going to talk on my specific, I suppose, experiences. Like I've said in previous videos, there's a lot of different, there's probably if you YouTube, don't, because I want you to keep watching this video, but if you YouTube search day in the life of a club promoter or week in the life of a club promoter, they're going to show you some overproduced, over-edited, PR campaign of how fucking incredible their life is and how many girls and stuff they're surrounded with, which is honestly what I was doing when I was much younger, but I'm 28 now and I don't give really a flying fuck what you think about it anymore. So I'm just going to talk about the kind of realities of what it was like day to day to be a club promoter. So I'm going to break it down into the week, during the day, maybe being in the office or working from home or whatever, and then on the night as well. So the week was pretty boring. It was mostly managing the social media. Now, what would happen is you'd eventually just come up with a cadence for the social media. So it will be like Monday you post about the drink specials. This might not be exactly what it was or specifically what you should do, but it might be like Monday you post the photo album, Tuesday you post the drink specials, Wednesday you remind them that we're open Friday, Thursday you do like a bar card competition. Now that was the hardest bit, because what we did for a bar card competition, it would be like, sorry, I just had a coffee and a cigar, so I'm still digesting caffeine and nicotine. The Thursday bar card competition would be like this post, and we'll pick 5 random people to get a $100 bar card on the Friday night. And then Friday night we'd post something else, then Saturday we'd post something about the Saturdays. Now the Thursday bar card competition was the hardest thing, because I had to come up with a meme for every single one. Now, rather than just getting any random meme that I could find, which I would do from time to time if I just couldn't come up with anything, I would always make, or at least try my best to make, a meme specific to our club. So I would do stuff about people would always jump the beer garden fence if security rejected them, so there'd be memes about that, or there'd be memes about the kebab shop up the road that everyone went to. Now the reason that I did that is one of the key elements of content going viral is relatability. Now if you think about this logically, it would be like whenever you send a meme to someone, sure, it might just be a funny meme, but it's also relatable. So it's like the typical that feeling when, or you'd send it to someone like, oh, this is you, or this is me, because it's relatable, right? People like talking about themselves. It's their favourite subject because they can never get the answers to the questions wrong. And so I always try and make a relatable meme. And so we had by far the best organic reach of any nightclub in Perth, which is the city that I live in where I worked. And I know that for a fact because I was still admin or editor on a lot of the other different clubs' pages, who compare statistics and things like that. And that really put us miles ahead of, organically, a lot of the other clubs as well. So during the week, it was typically just preparing for the Friday. So that might be planning events, trying to come up with concepts. It might be going to, there was a certain store, what was it called? Indents or something, I can't remember. There was a store and you get maybe decorations if it was a themed night or something. It'd be a lot of tracking promoter stats. Now there's a lot of different, I suppose, incentive mechanisms or programs that you can use for your promoters. The one that I used on our Friday night, which worked for our night, was the promoters could, my promoter team of 20 or 30 would fluctuate because you get people, add people, things like that, based on performance. They'd submit a number of names. As long as they had 10 names submitted, they would get a $75 bar card on the night. Even if those 10 didn't rock up, they still got the bar card. So what I had to do was go through and make sure that their people were actually rocking up, or that enough were actually rocking up for it to be over a long enough time horizon for it to actually be worthwhile having them as a promoter. And so be getting the list from Friday night, counting off how many names have been crossed off, putting into a Google sheet, telling the promoters how they did, doing their, at the end of every month, the top 3 promoters got a prize or something like that. And then if there was a promoter or 2 that just have been not performing for whatever reason the last couple of weeks or months, you'd remove them. There was a couple of reasons why promoters would stop performing. The easiest one was eventually they just kind of grow up and stop going out. The average lifetime of a promoter is typically only a couple of weeks, but I had some promoters for years, and it was because we had a really good community. I've talked about it in other previous videos. There was another point I was going to make, hold that thought. Oh yeah, the other one. The other reason, this one's kind of funny. The other reason promoters would drop off in performance is they would just get into a relationship. Happened all the fucking time, and I learnt pretty quickly. So if there was one really popular girl that was submitting loads and loads of names, if she just got a boyfriend and just stopped submitting names, I would kind of just wait for them to break up. Like, I'll just leave them in the team. Like, they wouldn't be going out, so they wouldn't be using the bar card. And then eventually, you know, they're 18 or 19. The likelihood that they're going to be together forever and go get married is incredibly low. So you just wait a couple months, and then they break up. And then when they come back, they do monumentally better, just because now they're going through, boy or girl, they're going through their hoe phase now, and they're inviting everyone, and then it works out. So that was a kind of funny thing that would always happen. Whenever someone got a relationship, I was like, just wait. Don't remember, just wait. Anyway. And so I would go into the office on the Wednesdays, and it would just be me and the manager, and we'd talk about how the promoters are doing, we'd talk about upcoming events, we'd get anything that we needed to get ready. Sometimes it would be about forming strategic partnerships. So for example, I know a lot of Americans watch my channel, mostly Americans anyway. There's a Mexican food chain here in Australia called Zambreros. There's another one, Guzman and Gomez, which I much prefer over Zambreros. If you like Zambreros, you're a coward. There was a Zambreros up the road, and so I would talk to the manager, and I think if someone had like a stamp or something from our club, they got like a cheaper fucking burrito on their way home when they were drunk or something like that. Or I'd be talking to the kebab shop up the road, coming up with some kind of deal. Or I'd be talking to any like local venues and coming up with deals to leave their, like after they're leaving their venue, they come to us, or be managing the ads, or any like university clubs and things like that too. We'd be planning like events and parties with university clubs, just so that they would bring in, you know, students, and university students obviously for the nightclub I worked at anyway were a huge demographic, and so those were worthwhile partnerships. So during the week it was relatively boring. There was a lot of data, it was a lot of ads management, it was a lot of messaging people as well. I remember it was funny when I stopped working in nightlife. My messages now, like on Facebook and Instagram, were just like fucking none. I didn't have to talk to anyone. It was fantastic. But obviously when you're a club promoter, everyone's talking via DMs and you're doing all that stuff, and you had to respond to people because you kind of had to be that guy, right, or girl. On the nights, the club would open over the half decade I worked there, I had a couple of different opening times. For the most part, it was 10 p.m. and then I think we got down to 9 p.m. because I managed to get the club busier earlier, that we could open up another hour and trade longer. We'd go back in like half-hour increments. But on the night, the club would open at 9 or 10. I would get to the office at usually like 7 or 7:30, and then we'd have a Facebook group with all the promoters. They would post their guest lists into there. I would compile the guest lists, and then there was a whole load of like late submitted names that I'd had to add or getting the club ready. I never really pre-drank unless it was like. Actually, I never pre-drank because I got alcohol for free, so I'll just drink when the club opened. But I would be lying to you if I said every single Friday night was like a massive party for me where all my friends would come over and we'd get ready and start drinking and playing beer pong. It was work. That's what it was. I'd drive to work or I'd get an Uber to work. I'd be there, I'd be in the office doing the names, and then I'd be kind of mingling and making sure everything's ready, seeing the DJs as they came in, because obviously firstly the DJs were friends, secondly keeping the DJs happy was something that Aaron, the manager, taught me to do really, really early. And I can say this because I was a DJ, a lot of managing DJs is just like kind of stroking their ego a little bit, so making them feel welcome when they come in, saying hi to the girl that they come in with, making sure the girl has a drink, making sure he has his bar card. And I was essentially a friendly proxy to the manager, because the manager is running around the venue, setting up the venue, dealing with like evictions, dealing with security, dealing with the front door. And so rather than anyone having to bother him and then him probably ignoring them, I would have to be that guy that was the proxy to the manager. So if they didn't have their bar card, I had to go to him and sort it out. And then if I couldn't sort it out with him, I had to come up with some story to tell them, and then I'd buy them a drink off of my bar card and keep everyone happy. So I was like that happy proxy to the venue manager, just so I have a smile on my face, because he doesn't. Club would open at 9, 9:30 or 10, depending what year it was. And then a lot of what I did, honestly, for the first maybe hour was just be out the front. Now, what I mean by that was there was a couple reasons, and there was a couple things I definitely wasn't doing it. I wasn't the person that was ticking off names on the guest list mostly, unless the door girl was late or something like that. And I'll talk about how I would do that in a bit. I wasn't scanning IDs unless we were super busy and I was just trying to get people in. We had people for all those roles. I was literally just standing at the front, and this is going to sound egotistical, looking important. That was actually it. Because people will easily remember the face of the person that's just standing at the front looking important as they come in. And so eventually over time, everyone kind of knew, they actually didn't know what I did, but they knew that it was to a degree important. Not as important as a venue manager or security or anything like that, but they knew, like, if the guy's standing at the front not doing anything and everyone else is doing work and he's just standing there with the staff lanyard looking important, this guy must be someone, right? And that sounds incredibly egotistical and I acknowledge that. And then as people were coming in, I would greet them, or they'll come up to me and greet me, and I'd meet their friends, and it will be a lot of, I'd either go in and get a drink with them if we were like close friends, or it'd be like, hey bro, so good to see you. I'm just I'm just busy right now. I'll come see you, we'll get a shot at the bar, like later tonight, sound good? And so it was a lot of like making them feel welcome as they come in, because a lot of the first impression of coming to the club is going to dictate how they feel for the rest of the night, and ultimately how often they're going to come back as well. And so a lot of it was just standing out the front, greeting people as they come in, looking important, being on my phone, things like that. Now, if I ever did have to jump onto scanning IDs through ScanTech or ticking off names on the guest list, I would have to ramp up my, what's the correct word to describe this? Enthusiasm? Or extroversion. And so like, as people are coming in, I'm making jokes about like, whose list are you on? Blah, blah, blah. That wasn't obviously what I was. I'm struggling to remember an example now, but I've been making jokes about how long you guys been lining up for, why didn't you guys come earlier, things like that, and then ticking off names. Now, if there was no one in the VIP line, or like the VIP line was quiet, but the general line was really long, what I would do is I'd just walk up the line and be like, you guys look like you've been waiting here for fucking ages, do you want to come inside now? Or I'd get people to like play scissors, paper, rock. So what I'd do is I'd get, eventually you kind of have a sixth sense for what groups in the line came together, because their body language suggests that like these 3 people came together, these 4 people came together. Even though it's just a long line of like dozens of people, you can figure that out. And so I go, hey, you and you guys are in different groups? Cool. You and you, if you play scissors, paper, rock, best 2 out of 3 wins, and you can skip the line right now. And you do things like that. And then it would make the typically monotonous, boring task of waiting in line for 30 minutes a little bit more interesting. Because even if they lost the scissors, paper, rock, at least they had some kind of interaction, and their level of enjoyment in the club went from hearing muffled bass music from the wall next to them to, oh, we got to play scissors, paper, rock. And so they just went from a 0 to a 1, which is an infinite like improvement in their experience waiting in line. And so I do stuff like that. And then it's a lot of, there was another benefit of walking up the line. And again, this is going to sound incredibly egotistical and I suppose narcissistic. Ask my ex-girlfriend. But I'd walk up the line and then girls or guys would call out my name, and so to come over and talk to them and probably ask me to get them to skip the line. But then other people on the line would figure out, oh, everyone knows who this guy is, right? This guy, the staff lanyard on that has this haircut. And so whenever they'll come in, they'd know that I had something to do with the club. And then in the long term, that helped my kind of position in the club, so that, you know, my role and responsibility of knowing as many people as possible and as many people knowing me as possible helped, right? So that was another thing. So I would be out the front of the club from open till, I don't know, like 10:30 or 11 or something like that. I'd go in and out and get drinks and stuff like that. You couldn't, because of the liquor licensing, you can't bring drinks out to the front of the club, because that's where the like alcohol license ends, is like the front door. But I'd go in, drink, do a shots, and then, or maybe put my drink by the door girl or something like that. And then the rest of the night, it was a lot of, I'd literally just be walking laps around the club and saying hi to people that knew me, or making friends with people, or if we were running any kind of, I don't know, games or something like that, or every now and then we'd get like pizza or burgers for the club, so I'd had to go to the restaurant and go pick up fucking 24 pizzas in my car and then drive back and then hand them out. A lot of it also was kind of directing the photographer. Now the photographer had like how many social photos he was meant to get, how many like vibe photos he's meant to get and things like that. But if we had anything going on in that night, that was a visual spectacle, like the pizzas or the burgers, or fucking we had like a Care Bear suit and shit like that. I had to make sure like, hey, I need you here at this time, and then getting all those photos and just getting as many of them as we can, so that we weren't just doing things and people that didn't come didn't know about it, right? So any visual spectacles had to be captured by the photographer. That was really, really important. If there was ever like I'd always try and keep an eye on the line too and figure out when it was the longest, and then message him like, hey, can you come out and just take a photo of the line now? And then we'd ideally get a photo of the line at the longest it was during the night. And then it was then it was obviously just like a lot of drinking, and then it might be like leaving my car there, or getting an Uber back if I was responsible. And that was pretty much it. And it was mostly that for about 5 years. The next day afterwards, it would be sleeping until probably midday, responding to messages, because eventually you'll get to a point where, because of what I was saying before, everyone kind of figuring out who I was, they'd add you on Facebook or they'd add you on Instagram or whatever, and then they'd be messaging you throughout the night trying to get them to skip the line or something like that. But then eventually you get to a point during the night where you just like stop responding to people because it's like late and you're drunk and you're trying to do your own thing. And then you'd respond to all those messages and like, hey, so sorry I missed this, I was super hammered last night, didn't see it, I did. And then maybe you'd offer them guest list or something for that next night. And then you just kind of repeat that every single week. It might vary a little bit. There was some differences. So some times when it would be different would be when we would have a touring act, so like a DJ. The way it would change is not that much, but basically I would be the artist liaison, so I would be the one that would go and pick them up from the airport. I'd take them to the hotel. I would take them to lunch and dinner, make sure they're happy and fed. If there's any other DJs or artists they want to hang out with, driving them to that. There's a couple, not horror stories of doing artist liaison. You American DJs are the worst. I can see the analytics on my YouTube. The American DJs were always the biggest handful to deal with, because I don't know, you guys have bigger DJs than we do, obviously, like Australia and things like that. The European DJs were okay. The Australian ones were like literally fine every single time. I never had any bad experiences with Australian DJs. American ones, I'll tell you, I don't think I should name names, but I might make other videos on some other little horror stories I had that they weren't really, they kind of were. I'll make some other videos about it. But yeah, and then picking up the artists and then driving them to the venue, and then again there was the other thing where, if everyone on the line sees me walking in with the DJ, they figure out, oh, that's the important guy that runs the night and things like that. And then taking them in and then bringing them to the green room, making sure that all of their drinks rider were there. So the drinks riders, like, they might have in their agreement that they need like a bottle of this brand of vodka and this many mixers and this many Red Bulls and this many fucking 6 white towels and things like that. Making sure they played their set. And then a lot of it also was making sure they didn't get too fucked up for their set, making sure they got there on time. And then doing their set. If they want to hang around, they can hang around. If they want to go home, I had to drive them home, and then make sure that they get to the airport safely the next day, hungover or not, and then making sure they got on their flight. And that was pretty much it. It's not that glamorous. Obviously, it's still fun, and I don't want to make it sound like, the fucking hardest job on earth. It was a pretty easy job, but if you're watching anyone online that's like, they're doing a PR campaign for how fucking cool their life as a nightclub promoter is, because I've seen some of them, like, man, it's like, you put all of this on just for the camera, right? It's like, it's not like that every night, right? It's still work. It's easy work, though. I'm not saying I had a hard job. I wasn't in a fucking coal mine or anything like that, but it was still work. There was responsibilities and duties that I had, and I was responsible for doing them, so I could still drink and have fun and all that stuff, as long as the to-do list got ticked off, then everything was all happy. But other than that, if you guys have any other questions that I haven't addressed regarding being a club promoter and what it's like, drop them in the comments below, because I actually really like engaging with you guys, because also it makes making content easier, because if you guys ask questions, I go, they're wondering about that, then I just make a video about it, because this video is actually a response to someone else's comment on, I think, my last video about being a club promoter, where they asked, like, what's the average day or week like working in the office. But other than that, if you've got any questions, drop them below, and I'll see you in the next story time video.